I'm sure you will have all gotten the setup from Paula when she emailed out about this beforehand. Essentially what we're going for is we thought it might be helpful both for yourselves and for our other clients if we recorded a chat between you all as to how things are going in tutoring, how you see the industry going, how you think this is going to change it, and anything TutorCruncher could do or has done or might do in the future to help.
Great, thank you.
That's no problem at all. We'll probably give it a few more minutes, maybe give it till about 5 or 10 minutes into the call. But do you guys want to, I mean, I suppose you're all familiar with each other. We're not so much at a stage where we all need to be introduced, are we? Or do you want to, just for the purposes
Mary before.
of the video? No? I could do an introduction myself, but I probably wouldn't do you justice. So do you want to, obviously you all know me, being Fionn from TutorCruncher, head of sales marketing, guy who talks a lot. Do you guys want to kind of go around and maybe start with you, Mary?
Okay, so hi Sophie, I'm Mary Lonsdale and my business is called Mentor Education.
Yeah.
We're based in Balham and we've been going for 38 years now. I've owned the business for 5 of those. And we started out a straightforward tuition agency, but we've got a few more strings to our bow now. We do quite a lot of assessments and SEN consulting, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, brilliant. So yeah, obviously my name's Sophie and I work for Simply Learning Tuition. I've been there for 6 years now, generally managing kind of all our incoming requests, but I specialise in homeschooling and our university level education consultancy.
Cool.
Fantastic. Harry or Ben, do you guys want to chip in a small self piece or something?
I work for Bonus McFarland and I head up the tutoring team, have around 600 tutors and work with about 200 to 300 families a month. In addition to that, we also have a consulting business, so we support students and families right the way through their education, namely kind of international families looking to educate their children in the independent school sector, and that support goes right up to UK and US university support. Alongside that, we also have a sister company, the Independent School Show. So we run a big exhibition in November, hopefully, where we have about 250 schools that exhibit, 5,000 to 6,000 people that attend. And then we have about 14 shows around the world, particularly, I guess, in Southeast Asia, India, Istanbul, and Europe.
And then, Ben, if you'd like to drop in, finish.
Yeah. So I run a startup. We support schools to provide music and arts education. We're developing a national strategy to try and help all 32,000 schools. So we're just in the midst of doing our research and pilot schemes so we can work with local councils and hopefully eventually national government. So yeah, that's us.
Fantastic. I think we have Wesley from Athena just dropping in now.
Hello there. Hi guys.
How are you doing, Wesley? Are you well?
Yeah, fine, thanks. Yeah, not too bad. And you?
Yeah, I think we all seem to be getting on fairly well at the moment, given the circumstances.
Yeah.
Would you just like to introduce yourself to the other people on the call and we can start chatting about what we said we chat about?
Sure. Yeah. You know, I can see here that I can see Mary. I've met you. Hi. Yeah, at 1 or 2. I think TutorCruncher's drink social, and I think maybe did Bashby go there as well? I can't see.
Oh, Ben. Yeah, Ben, you would have met Wesley
maybe
at that wine mixer. In November.
Of course.
Yeah, briefly. Yeah, you know, I just recognize the face. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know about how you guys are finding the demand. Actually, that's probably the thing that we've seen it drop a lot in terms of new inquiries, but we have seen, you know, many of our existing people kind of continue, which is interesting. It wasn't really what I'd expect. Is that what you guys are finding as well?
Yeah, definitely. Whereas we've seen well, we were going along fine until they cancelled the exams. But so this quarter would be very much about GCSE and A-level support for us. So we'd have our biggest months, March, April, May, leading up to those public exams. And as soon as it was announced they weren't happening, those leads obviously didn't happen.
Yeah.
But what we have found is by reaching out to our already current clients, we've been able to support them well and support them with more or different or that sort of thing. That's where we've had the most success, really. But new leads are definitely down.
Yeah.
Did you notice in the build up to the, say, in the last few years, have you felt a shift towards online anyway, that it was gravitating that way, or did this kind of come out of the blue? Do you think that was a direction that people were going in, or had it maintained relatively static, do you think?
We've had some online for years, but you know, it's obviously right now it's all online, and I wonder if I think some of it will probably stay online, but if people can conveniently have a tutor come to them, they'll still want to. I mean, I think that, I don't know about you guys, but I think that one of the key things about agencies is that they can maybe find people who are convenient and close to people and provide that kind of tuition. So we're quite keen for it to go back in a way so people can start requesting in person, because it gives us another chance to give something that's a bit closer to what they're looking for. You know, geography, you know, just it's a little bit impersonal. You can have someone from anywhere, which is great in terms of coverage, but maybe, you know, we always felt that we were quite good in placing someone quite close to someone who can easily get there and things. But, you know, we don't really mind, to be honest. It is easier to place online clients, you know.
It's definitely easier to place tutors online, obviously, because they're much more they're much more flexible and willing as well, because they don't need to leave their house and spend half an hour or 40 minutes traveling. I mean, we definitely want to get back to face-to-face tuition, because again, like Wesley, I think that's what we do best. Ironically, we have been trying to convince families to subscribe to online lessons over the last 7 or 8 years, and obviously we've been forced to exclusively teach only online in the current lockdown. But I think ultimately, now that families have seen the benefits of online teaching, then we'll certainly find a good balance, I hope, where there's a blend of in-person and online sessions. I've always pushed for tutors meeting in person, certainly from the first couple of months, if not the first kind of academic term. And once they find their feet, maybe going to the house a couple of times a month, and then providing kind of an online drop-in type service, where if students have essays or get exams back that they need looking over before their next class, then the tutor obviously has that availability and flexibility to jump on a Zoom call.
And have you noticed, Harry, the same resistance? So obviously you're trying to get people online for 7 or 8 years prior to this. Is it that same resistance that you had over those years, that is maintained now at the moment, that people are still hesitant, or has COVID changed anything about how clients view those online classes?
Yeah, I think they've seen the value and richness that you can get from an online class. And that said, it really does depend on the student. The younger they are, obviously, it's much harder to get their concentration. The period of time of teaching is shorter. With older students, though, it can work really well. Obviously, typically teenagers are engaged in technology all the time anyway, so they quite enjoy that aspect. The teaching is probably more concentrated. The resources that it can share are perhaps a little bit organized, and obviously you can record lessons if you want to. So there's lots of upsides on that, from that perspective.
Yeah, that we did a similar call to this with some of our Australian clients earlier in the day, and that point between balancing those younger students who were an absolute nightmare on online calls with older students who seem to be adapting to it really well. So they were saying that they are quite happy to continue with it for a lot of older students, but that once face-to-face comes back in for younger, especially younger groups, they're going to jump at it. Have
and
you
also sorry Fionn,
no, work away,
also children with additional needs as well, not also always best place to learn online. We've just got families who've been having teachers with us, kids with ADHD and things like that, and obviously it just doesn't work very well, so a lot of those jobs have been put on pause, but like happy to resume as soon as the teacher can get back to the house and use all the other powers and capabilities and experience that they have to have that in-person lesson.
Has the balance changed either for you, Mary, for anyone else, in terms of group lessons versus one-on-one? Have you like maybe started spreading the cost around more parents to motivate them to take more classes now that everybody's at home?
Yes, and it's just because we found that there's a different perception of value around online lessons for some of our customers, and whether that's customers we already had or clients that are coming new to us, perceive that online lessons should cost less. But obviously we're balancing that with you're getting the same expert, and it's just a delivery channel essentially. So to get around that, we have put on lessons in groups of 4 where we can provide the same expert but reduce the cost for our clients.
And have you found tutors are fairly amenable to that and that they're happy to teach group classes, or has there been a bit of pushback?
Some of them yes, some of them no, and we've just had to sift through and find the ones who really want to do it and are excited to do it, and also have the skills. I think it just takes a bit more preparation, doesn't it, and you know, experience to manage those children online in a Zoom. So it's just been about selecting the right person for it, really.
Yeah, it's completely fair. Has anyone else been experimenting with that kind of those small groups? Yeah,
we've had a few, and some of them were quite happy to jump in. It kind of, if you do that, and we never really did much of it before, it does open up that extra market of people who wouldn't want to pay for a full lesson, you know, on their own one-to-one, and then, you know, they obviously have a lesson that's much cheaper. But we've had 1 or 2 of those people then decide, actually, no, we want one-to-one, and actually now pay for one-to-one. But it was a kind of entry point, which helped. But it's a bit fiddly to set up. It's not exactly what we, you know, want to do. We want to have the specialist one-to-one, but yeah, we've had one or 2.
That's fair enough. Sophie, have Simply Learning been trying any of that stuff? You're a majority, or was it entirely one-on-one prior to this?
Yeah, entirely one-to-one, and still remains that way at the moment. We'll see how we get on. I know the need is definitely there, and I think lots of even parents who send their children to independent schools, or who would usually feel like they have the means for one-to-one due to kind of disruption at home or other kind of COVID disruptions, feel like group lessons may be more appropriate for them. I've had some tutors who I know are delivering group lessons who have said that some, for example, only children really look forward to seeing their kind of online friends and things. And obviously the provision at each school is very different, whether it's maintained or the independent sector. So it's something that we may consider branching into, but we've for a number of years now, about 5-6 years, about 20% and rising of our work's been delivered online. And we have always, like you were saying, Mary, the importance for us is that you're still getting the same specialists, they're just online. But also we're aware that we all, you know, every business is having to be flexible and change things. So it's something that we are considering. But as Wesley was saying, it's a little bit of a logistical nightmare. Organizing, so it's weighing up the value versus everything, as always in business.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And Ben, as well, you work directly with schools a lot of the time, don't you? So have you been in contact with those schools? They must be a little bit haywire at the moment, where they're trying to get all of those lessons
Yeah,
happening at distance, are they?
Pretty chaotic in state education.
Yeah.
Yeah, because none of the schools have been set up to do online, so it's all sort of a crap, let's get something going, we don't know how. So yeah, it's been pretty devastating for us actually, because we lost 55% of our income basically overnight as soon as the schools closed. We tried everything we could to convince people to do it online, and it's a mixed bag. Some of them thought fantastic idea, and some of us literally abused us over email about the idea of doing it online, because it was just absolutely ridiculous idea. So we have tried to educate people. The ones who are doing it are loving it and telling their friends about it, and rating our teachers 5 stars. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. And we used to do loads of classes, so we would say about 60% was one-to-ones, and then 40% like classes like dance, or like sessions for small kids and music and things like that, orchestras. And so we use TutorCruncher to sort of schedule all that. But we've had to basically suspend all our classes because safeguarding is one of the issues. Teachers knowing how to manage a Zoom group.
Yeah.
So we're having to think about who we can get to train our teachers to manage. I mean, if they're like 7 years old and you've got 10 of them all on Zoom, it's basically impossible. Yeah, that's kind of our mixed bag.
Have you noticed as well, because obviously you're predominantly arts, if not entirely arts, are you? So have you noticed that people have a different perception of that compared to maths or English or science or anything else?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So I think there's this perception that you can't, like, obviously if you're learning an instrument, you kind of physically need to be there to show them what to do. So I understand that. And the same with if you're doing a dance, I mean, you can't really dance in front of a camera and tell people to dance back and expect to charge what we normally would. So yeah, I think because it's so practical, it's much harder. I'm sure if we were doing maybe more academic sessions like maths or science tutoring, that it might be a little bit easier to navigate. But yeah.
Yeah.
That's a shame, because I don't know, my kids are having cello lessons and singing lessons on Zoom, and they're really enjoying them, and it's great. I think people should just try it.
Exactly, people should just try it.
Maybe you could give them a free lesson or something to get them to try it. The ones who don't believe it.
Oh, we tried everything. We've done ambassador schemes. We've tried giving them free credits. It's school parents, especially at state schools, who aren't particularly ambitious. They're really hard to, they're the first to go, just like that. So we've been giving out bursaries more than we can handle at the moment. So like our bursary funds disappeared within 3 days of coming down. So yeah, tricky to navigate.
Yeah, completely fair. And you mentioned you're using Zoom as well. Are the rest of you using Zoom, or I know BitPaper recently started charging? That might have been the most common one up until recently. Have you made any changes to that, or?
I mean, we just use a bit of each thing. We don't force our tutors to use one or another platform. You know, but I mean, yeah, I think that obviously Zoom is great. Skype's pretty much as good. What we haven't really seen is a big take up, I'm aware, of our tutors using sort of BitPaper and some of the other tools, unless they're using them without, you know, telling us. But I mean, do many of your tutors sort of use tools like BitPaper and things? I know it's integrated in TutorCruncher, and there's going to be soon, you know, other platforms in as well. But you know,
a lot of them were using it.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. A lot of them were using it, and then obviously they put up a paywall a couple of weeks ago, So that was met with a bit of resistance. So I'm sure they've just Googled whiteboard and found their own one.
Yeah. I think most tutors that we work with are using a whiteboard, but it's no longer bit paper. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, so have you guys noticed, we've sent out a couple of emails, obviously it's all been slightly rushed in response to everything happening so quickly, but we have put up a few other options. So I don't know if people have seen things like Lesson Space, or so we have Bramble is now one of the new ones, as well as TutorCruncher. Does anyone come across those or have any thoughts on use?
Bramble we've explored before, and I think now, thanks to you guys integrating it, there are more tutors using it too, and I think they're still offering it free of charge, aren't they? So yeah, I think that has seen uptake, but most tutors that I speak to regarding how they specifically teach online, all of them are quite different depending on what they're teaching and the student. And often I think they're usually at the same time will have a shared Google Doc or something. They're often using, I think, 2 or 3 platforms at the same time to get the most out of online, I would say. But I have heard Bramble mentioned.
Okay, so it seems to be the case with most of you that you just leave it up to tutors to figure out which works the best for them and go ahead with it, yeah?
Yeah.
Typically, yeah. So
would you use things like do you have URLs in the lesson reminders or anything like that, or it's just up to the tutor to have direct communication?
Direct communication, really, yeah.
And have you, because we've always noticed more with our online companies that they tend to be more likely to limit direct communication between tutors and clients. I guess it's like a poaching thing because they feel like they can. But has that been an issue for you, do you think, since this has kicked off? Poaching or like direct contact being a little bit more accessible online?
I was going to actually ask what other people thought, but I don't really see, there's no theoretical reasons why it would be more likely. I mean, if you're putting them in person, if they're meeting in person or meeting online, it doesn't really stop them from, going private if they were going to, but it does feel like maybe there's a bit less of a close link with I don't know, the agency. They just turn on Skype and there's something there. But yeah, we're not too worried about that, but I was interested to see if there was a big worry.
Yeah, no, I would argue there's actually kind of more loyalty because the tutor doesn't know the family as well, the family don't know the tutor as well.
Yeah.
So those kind of side conversations that one might have in the family home after a couple of months,
right?
You're not having that sense of relationship, and equally, the invoicing is very systematic through TutorCruncher, so it encourages tutor to fill out their hours correctly, and likewise the families enjoy receiving invoices via email.
We've not had any increase in disintermediation either. I think we've actually spent a lot of time coaching tutors how to use the online systems, and they've been really grateful to a large extent. And also they've been really worried about their income, and if we're still getting them work, they're actually quite loyal at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know about anyone else, but we've seen a huge influx in applications to be represented. And I think those tutors who already have a good relationship with their agency are just fostering that, and are very very keen to work together, which is nice.
Okay, great. So it sounds like the supply side is pretty healthy. It's just the demand side that things have dropped off on. That's fair enough.
I think that's a problem across all industries at the moment. That's only working and not enough people spending. And I think you probably may have found that lots of people's incomes have shrunk.
Yeah.
So to be able to afford a one-on-one is actually, for some people, not possible anymore.
Yeah, and I'm sure tutoring isn't the most recession-proof industry you could be in the sense that I imagine it's, if someone's income is now 80% of what it used to, it's tutoring probably used to come from that 20%. Would you find that or expect that?
I've actually, I don't know. I mean, we've obviously not, it's been a long time.
Sorry, Wesley, I don't know if we have you there.
Since there was another real recession. Yeah, no, we weren't in the game during the 2008 crisis. That was a while before that. But I don't know. I think that whenever people are looking to get into good schools, universities and stuff. And so I think that, you know, education as a whole is quite recession proof. But it's not if they cancel the exams, you know, if they're just cancelling the exams.
Yeah, I think we're quite recession proof in that, you know, if there is a big recession and less families are, for example, able to afford private school, they maybe will go state, but have some supplementary tuition on top. As long as you're just agile and flexible, I think it can be a pretty strong place to be.
Great, yeah, and I suppose as well, if you're catering to university age students, I mean, in a recession, I'm sure when people can't get jobs, they tend to gravitate towards education. So yeah, maybe you're completely right on that. Are they audiences that you're currently targeting at all, or is it's mostly school age audience, or have you been working with any university levels? Because I would imagine they're a lot more adaptive as well to new technologies in the same way that older teenagers would be.
Yeah, I think like the universities, I mean, we've been working with Bristol University at the moment on a project and their widening participation scheme. And you know, that's still going ahead. The funding's obviously still there, but it's changed from we want a lot of tutors in Bristol to how many tutors can you provide us online, which is actually helpful to us. So I guess it's not all doom and gloom.
Do you see a lot of the forecasts that this would have on the markets? So do you think that there are going to be lasting repercussions among people who look for tutoring or among the market generally that are going to stay with it? Like, do you think a large section is going to stay online, or what section that might be?
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, I would expect that we might see a little uptick in online, but most people will choose to have in person. You know, I just dealt with someone today who said, yeah, we want online now, but when it goes back, we want in person. But there will be some people who this will help break down the barrier for online. But then of course we've got to consider, you know, what do we do differently than just some platform that just purely provides online tutoring, like, I don't know, My Tutor, I think, or something like that. One of those, you know, just online platforms that people just click and have a session straight away. You know, but
yeah, are those kind of tools ones that you would want to integrate into your current offering, or do you want to distinguish yourself from them? Do you think do you want to move away from being a instant on demand, click here, get a tutor? Or
yes.
yeah,
definitely, because I mean, essentially that's a commoditized product, isn't it, Fionn?
Yeah.
And it's a different value proposition in terms of price, and the people who are on those platforms are much more price conscious, and we want to win business on the back of our values and our teachers, and not on price. So always keen to distinguish ourselves from those, but hopefully, and I think this is true, that we don't have the same customers. And I mean, obviously we have tutors and we have families who've tried those platforms and have found them, you know, flaky or unreliable, or tuition has only lasted 3 or 4 weeks, whereas whether they then come to us or they, you know, we believe that we put the effort into getting them the right teacher and do a lot of work around that, then it is more sustainable long-term thing, and it is a very different service.
So a lot of the value is added in, I guess, the relationship management, rather than, you don't want to move to a place where the value is solely in the collection. You want to maintain the relationship with the client and have that be where the value gets added.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Want to have a long-term relationship with them.
Yeah, I think these big platforms, it's like the types of, there might be a handful of huge, large platforms that are dealing in sort of thousands and thousands of people, tutors and stuff. But, you know, and in the war between them, it's going to be very, very cutthroat, and it's going to be who's got the biggest amount of spend on their infrastructure and stuff. Whereas, you know, in the individualistic side, which, you know, I'd say most of the agencies here are on the sort of quality individual side, then, you know, you can kind of earn money on a smaller scale, but without being in the same competitive bracket as them. And, you know, we're not in a hurry to try and be the next Skype or something, you know, or be the next My Tutor. But, you know, maybe BitPaper wants to, though, you know, it's quite expensive.
Yeah, that's fair. It's funny. It's a real difference, I think, in the UK market, because usually when we speak to people internationally, the focus is a lot more on, you know, I want to be the next Facebook, I want to be the next whoever of tutoring, Google of tutoring, and scale our operations and become really big. But the emphasis in the UK does seem to be on that, building that relationship and quality over efficiency, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just a different business model, isn't it? I mean, I think like TutorFair, I might be saying this wrong, but I think, you know, the kind of people they've got on their board are like this, you know, the ex-CEO of Netflix and stuff like that. You know, they're just playing a very different game, as a volume game, which I wouldn't even try and compete on. And also, I'm not totally convinced that, you know, they've all been going a while. I'm not sure any of them are even profitable. But...
Yeah.
Yeah, I think TutorFair's margins are similar to the agencies, so you're gonna, you know, we'll see.
Do you think if everything does continue online, at least at the moment or into the future, that actually keeping that value in the client relationship might actually become more important than it had been previously? If previously it was the kind of people who went for online tutor were looking for maybe a transactional approach, do you think that now a lot of people who want the relationship approach looking online, do you think that's going to change how companies like TutorFair or anyone else operate?
It might do. I think I've noticed more than ever that families are, particularly online, looking to put their trust into someone. And I think, you know, working with 5 different tutors to homeschool your child that you found from various different websites might be quite challenging for a parent in comparison to trusting someone from an agency who you know it has at least have an overview and has the similar quality of tutors. And I think trust will become an even bigger factor in choice, I think.
So it then just becomes about how to foster that trust online, right? Like, how do you communicate that personal message in HTML?
Well, the start of that is by, you know, having more interactions with clients online. You know, often, obviously, parents call up and you have a good telephone conversation. You might go and meet them if they've got time and they live close by, but the majority of requests come through the telephone. So if you're going to exclusively move online, then perhaps they have that consultation, that initial one, kind of virtually, to, you know, start that relationship of trust.
Is that something that you want to do? Maybe like have on your current inquiry forms, add a consultation date or something that they can speak with an admin face to face or on the phone, and maybe build up that relationship there, so they're a little bit more prepped for being thrown into online.
In our business, I guess we are quite bespoke and high end, so we would always encourage to meet them in person, to be honest, and kind of veer towards or away from online. So no, I don't think that would kind of necessarily be an inquiry form. Tick the box for us. Yeah,
fair enough. And do you think, on the build up to, on the basis which everyone seems to be working off, that schools are going to come back in September, do you think that there's a lot of prep that companies like yourselves or others should be doing before September hits? To, I mean, in direct contact with those schools, obviously, Ben, you'd have you work very, very closely with schools. Is that something that you have in your mind, that you want to kind of hit the ground running in September when things do get back underway?
It's a huge unknown what's going to happen in September. It's likely that schools won't return this term at all, and they're in September that they might do a phased approach. They might only do one school year at a time, and every 2 weeks or every month introduce another age group. That's just things been floated around by our schools. I don't know about the rest of the country, but so I think it's quite difficult to prep, really, when we don't really know what's going on. I think a lot of investment needs to go into making the online stuff as effective as possible, so that we can weather this storm for as long as it needs to. And we didn't intend to do anything online as soon as the schools are back, because obviously we work in the school, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It must be a massive unknown for you all right at the moment. How have you found the attitude of schools that you're speaking to now? Are they just, is it just slightly chaotic and they're not thinking about things like tutoring or the arts, and they're just kind of focused on survival for the next few months?
Oh yeah, it depends what school you're at. I mean, if you're a private school, I'm sure they've probably got better systems in place and more funding to apportion to setting online stuff up. But for state schools, it's very chaotic, I think, for most of them, because they just don't know, they don't have these systems set up. The government haven't provided anything. No one's trained on how to use any of these platforms that they're using. So yeah, it's interesting, but I think that actually presents a really good entry point for tutoring companies who can say, look, we know what we're doing in this area, we can help you. Why don't you let us assist you and do stuff for your kids? And they'd be very welcome, I think, because they could use all the help they can get.
Okay, great. So there is drive and interest there from the schools. It's just a matter of implementation and practicalities as to how and when they're able to. The school
won't necessarily seek that out, I don't think.
Yeah.
But if there's an easy, affordable solution for them, or a way that they don't pay anything, and they just suggest it to their kids, to their families, being like, if you need extra support, we're partnering with this agency. You get special school rates. They'll take it in a heartbeat, I think.
That's good news. That you help, very positive. Do you think there's aspects of the technology side or the software side of things that could make that position easier, either at schools or with parents, to kind of step in and say, in the school system, we recognize that you're dealing with a system that wasn't very well prepared for this. We're private, we're a little bit more on top of these things by nature previously anyway. Do you think that there's somewhere on the software side of things that could boost that claim, or could make you a bit more confident in being the technological solution among a lot of people who aren't very adapted yet?
Well, it depends what you're offering. I think the problem is these big schools have, if you've got to manage 2,000 students and they're all in different classes, they've got 10 different classes, different subjects, and they've all got to have their own sessions recorded and streamed, and I think I don't know if anyone can help in that way. I think that requires a proper software. Companies are already all over that anyway.
It's all about resources, isn't it? It comes down to resources.
Yeah. But I think for a tutoring agency, I think it's the more supplementary stuff that could be really useful. Sort of, these kids are barely getting half a day of school at the moment, if their parents can even get them to do that. So there's a huge deficit in their learning. which needs, support. So the families with probably the higher income, who either are still working or have been furloughed and can afford private tutoring, probably would either take classes or one-to-ones to fill in the gaps from the school, I think.
I was reading some article in the paper last week saying that there's a group of MPs putting forward a motion to get tutoring funding for children who've fallen behind during the COVID period. So maybe they will do something at a higher level, more strategic.
That money.
Yeah.
That would be great. I mean, I think it would be a good way to sort of put money out as well across a lot of tutors. A lot of people are looking for money and work, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think at this point, it's probably worth investing, talking to local councils, wherever you are, because they will be looking for solutions. So if they know of you, it's usually a very quick decision. Oh, we know this company, we've already spoken to them. Give them some funding. I mean, literally, it'll be someone with a spreadsheet of who to give money to and whatnot. So I think it's definitely worth getting to know your local council.
I suppose we've covered a fair bit. Obviously, we'll be hunkering down for the next few months anyway. But if everyone's happy, I guess we could call that our chat. I'm sure people find it very useful to refer back to this. It's a good.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Fionn.
No
did the Australians say anything interesting and different from what we? I mean, is the industry over there the same, basically the same kind of structure?
So they definitely noticed. Their impression of Australian clients is that they were pretty reluctant to go for online, and that they had a lot of pushback from clients, especially when they're a bit slow off the bat to adapt to all those things. So there's a big drop off initially. They seem to be getting a lot more new applicants now. They were working a little bit with East Asian markets as well. They were on similar time zone, and they said that they were a lot more inclined towards online lessons, a lot more prepared for them, and in tune with that whole world, whereas Australia was a little bit more traditional. But they seemed to be pretty positive about the direction it was going, and the fact that people were signing up a lot more. We had a suggestion as well. So one of our more recent clients in the last 6 months who started working with Big Improvements, they had noticed that they moved quite quickly into the online space as soon as this whole thing kicked off, and actually kind of question now as to whether that was the right move to make, because they moved quite quickly. They developed a solution. There were a few teething issues, but it was at a time when people didn't really appreciate or accommodate the difficulties that come up with online tutoring on a mass level. They were previously all in center. So there were a few hiccups and people responded very negatively. The thought was that maybe if they had waited a few weeks and gone online along with everyone else in the industry, that there'd be a lot more tolerance for those kind of mistakes.
Can see that.
Yeah, so that was the gist, but otherwise a lot of similar points.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks anyway for running this.
No,
I mean, I guess there's no reason why you couldn't do one of these again at some point. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been a theme of, especially the last few weeks, but also generally over the last few months, is that there seems to be a desire among our clients for a bit more of a community within TutorCruncher users and a bit of back and forth. And I guess we're kind of going in a direction more of fostering that. So I hope that's something that people are generally interested in, or that you'd be happy to chat to each other and work together on stuff like that.
Yeah, I think with everyone working from home, you can sometimes feel like you're in a bit of a bubble and aren't aware of what the landscape is when you're very busy trying to deal with the day-to-day and make our way through the pandemic. So it's nice to be able to put your head above the water for a little bit and share thoughts and ideas and hear how everyone else is getting on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're happy to continue kind of leaning in that direction. I think should be quite positive. But yeah, I guess we'll come up with news on that as we come up with it. And I have a few things to follow up with you all on. But other than that, I hope you all stay safe and enjoy the bank holiday weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
Thanks very
organising.
much for your
Nice to
time.
meet you
Thank
all.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye, bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye.